Welcome, everybody, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by my co-host, Katie Harris.
Thank you.
Managing partner here at Spot On Solutions. And returning guest, although it's been a while.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since we had Kinyon on. Kinyon Martin, owner, operator, president, CEO, whatever other.
Just whatever needs to be that day. Janitor.
Natalie calls him a few other things.
Janitor, his employees call him some four-letter words, whatever. But for Restore Rite, Kinyon, thanks for coming back on. I think this is your fourth time on the Third.
I think, yeah. So
you were the first episode.
He's the OG.
He was the OG. He was the very first episode. Yeah, I think you're right. Third time. So
yeah, I mean, you guys started with the bar, fairly low. I've seen some dramatic, huge guests on the podcast since then, and so I think this is a good way to manage expectations a little bit. Start the year. Let's not explode way out of the gate with Tony Robbins on the podcast.
We're going to stop Kinyon right there because that's not true. Yeah. None of that is true. None of what he said is true. We're starting off the new year. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now. When people have podcasts, they talk at the beginning of the year. It's all about, let's set goals, let's make plans. And so we thought, who better to have on than Kinyon Martin, who's been a good, close friend of ours for a long time. Obviously, guest on the podcast multiple times, but we work on marketing plans together. We work on all sorts of things. And so we really kind of wanted to just dive in initially. Restoration work is normally pretty slow beginning of the year. It's slow towards the end of the year. Winter is just slow normally for restoration companies. Yeah. And so how does a restoration company that is trying to set goals for let's have a big year, let's have our biggest year yet. Yeah. Typically the first of the year, you don't get off to the greatest of starts. So what are you doing right now to kind of help motivate your team? What are some goals maybe you've set for 2024? All of that stuff.
He's going to start you with an easy question.
Very easy. Very easy.
So for us, I think we come into it with a unique advantage maybe over others. Is we just finished a new shop. Yeah. And we were able to, when it does slow down at the end of the year, we were able to use that time to move things over to the new shop and have it more organized than the previous shop. And the environment is just a lot nicer at our new facility. And it's been crazy to me to see that change in people's demeanor. Yeah. Even for myself. So at the old location, we grew in personnel beyond where I didn't really have a seat at the table anymore, Yeah. And so I would stop in and then I'd work from home on things and I'd try and check on people. And I found myself easily distracted at the old facility and not always focused on what needed to be done that quarter, that month, that week, that day. And as we moved into the new building and I have an office, a dedicated space for myself, I'm way more focused. I'm way more disciplined on what I want to get done. I'm excited. I'll stay till 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's more fun. and that same feeling has been felt across the entire organization. Yeah. And then I go to the old shop because we've grown to where we got to keep both locations. And I'm just crawling there. I don't even want to go in here, you know. I can't believe what we were able to accomplish in the old facility. What we couldn't even see how we were restraining ourselves. And so for me, this has been very eye-opening on how our environment affects us, affects our team, and everything. And what are we doing to improve that environment, not just inside our own business, but maybe in the homes of those we work in. Yeah. Yep. And you can see maybe a homeowner comes home and they see a couple tools laying out, or there's not a containment set up, or it kind of paints the picture of how their life is in disarray. But as a professional, if you can go the extra step to make it look still organized, you feel it.
Yeah. It was really fun for me because I got the opportunity to actually come to your company's Christmas party this year. Yep. So my son was working for Kinyon while he was home and before he went to school. And so he was out at the Christmas party. I was the plus one. Mom got to be the plus one this year at the Restore Rite Christmas party. And it was tangible, right, for your whole team. And it was cool watching you get up and welcome them. and be like, hey, we're in our new building. And it was a little bit emotional for the whole team because they were proud of it, right?
Yeah.
And you can feel that tangibly being like, we've worked for this and we're here.
Yep. Yeah, a huge mood difference. And emotional is a perfect word for it. 'Cause it still is at times. You know, even just bringing it up now, it's just like you're so proud of what got done, you know, and proud of your team. It's beyond what we even anticipated we could do ourselves.
Okay, so that's a big goal. You've had that goal for a long time to get into a new building. Now you're there, right? Everybody's really excited right now. What does it look like? How do you keep that momentum now? What's the new goal look like?
Yeah. Well, for us, we had a big year last year. The environment provided a lot of opportunity for work. It was a big year. We still grew. So we had a few big things happen for us last year. We still grew on revenue, on how much work we did. We didn't have a single job that represented more than 10 or even 20% of that revenue, you know.
That's cool.
And so we had
just really healthy.
It just went really well last year as far as workload, you know. And then so this year with the new shop, place to actually dial in and focus on some KPIs and financials. It's like, okay, well, let's perhaps even strive to hit the same revenue goal, but be better at it.
Yeah.
You know,
be more efficient or whatever.
More efficient, and prepare ourselves to go for the next level that would be. You know, we want to be great where you're at to even start to be decent where you're going. Yeah. So a lot of what we're looking at for 2024 is improving what we have, what we've done, and improving the environment even more for in-house personnel and customers. How can we improve the customer experience? What kind of communication are they looking for? What communication works? What doesn't? Kind of story are we going to be telling?
Yeah.
You know. So
one of the things I loved about being out with your team is watching how they kind of took some ownership of that new space, right? So talk to us a little bit, like, it was your goal, right? Getting into the shop, that was yours and Natalie and Cooper. That was your guys' dream and your goal. How does an owner, right, or a manager take your goal, your dream, and somehow transfer it and let the rest of your team take part in that?
So there was both sides of that happened. We've been working on this shop for 3 years now, right? Putting plans in place.
That's crazy.
Setting things up, and then just we started post-COVID. Freight took way longer than it should have, and just a lot of things, right? But it was tough to manage a little bit of what the employees' expectations were, like where they thought they'd be at in the new shop, not allowing any sort of division to occur on who's upstairs versus on the main level.
Oh, okay.
Right? And
who gets an office, who
gets
doesn't.
an office or not. And it was actually even a little complicated because as we're building, depending on how many offices you have, that changes occupancy code, and then there's other regulations. And so we grew beyond the initial plans, and so we actually need more office space than what we asked for, but we couldn't do that in the middle of the build because it would put us out of compliance. Yeah. And so we're already kind of starting to remodel, you know, but we're not. If P&Z's watching this, we're not.
We're not.
Right? But we're already making space for people, right?
Yeah.
And luckily we have loads of space. And so we wanted to get feedback from people, but we also wanted to manage the expectations of, hey, this is where we need you, and this is why. And this is what we're hoping to change with the operations by having a facility to actually bring the customer in and have one place to sit down and be able to plan the entire project versus having to visit 5 different shops and getting materials. And now we're having the technology, having the resources that they can come in, they can choose their carpet samples, they can choose cabinetry type, colors, stains, you know, trim, and then sit down with a PM at a, you know, good space, nice table, and that customer can feel comforted knowing that these guys are capable.
That's so cool.
But the employees had great feedback for it. We don't think this will work. This is why it needs to look like that. And some were concerned that it was already too small, but it's like, concrete's dry, you know. So, but it's been such a huge blessing. It's had people compare it to a pregnancy. It sucks the whole time. The build sucked the whole time, and then once you have the product, it's just so amazing. You forget, and it would be amazing for us. Long-term goal, Restore Rite. We would love to put ourselves in a position that we could expand our market to other service areas, finding other shops that need help maybe doing that same thing, and we'd have the resources and help to maybe go in, purchase other locations, and deliver that same kind of environment to other people. That would be our 7-10 year, outlook and outwards.
That's so cool.
The Success Elevated podcast is brought to you by SOS Navigator. SOS Navigator is an on-demand training platform geared towards marketing, personal development, and business growth. We understand that as a business owner in the service industry, you wear a million hats. Let SOS Navigator be a simple and cost-effective way for you to continue to grow your business. Click the link in the show notes below and use code SOS Podcast to get 10% off your next on-demand training course.
I love that so much of what he's talking about sounds just like us moving in here.
Yeah.
It sounds just like, the similar situation, right? Like, I feel like moving into a new building, like, motivated our team to want to be better. We had a much more dedicated workspace. We had a lot of the same challenges. Basically, from day one, it almost felt like we didn't have enough space for everybody, right? And we've had to kind of make some shuffles, and we're looking to add more desks and more cubicles already. And like, it's just very funny the parallels there. But I love that your goals this year, and I think a lot of it's been fulfilled from the shop, are not necessarily like, or maybe it's more your plans. Your plans for this year aren't necessarily geared around like, how do we make our processes better? It's more so like, how do we enhance our customer experience, and how do we make our employees have like be more efficient, but be better employees without necessarily like, we don't have to change processes. We can just help them want to work
more fulfilled.
Yeah, be more fulfilled and work better with customers. I love that that's more the goal. Do you feel like that just came about naturally for you guys? Like, is that just been a bigger focus for you? Like, you feel like you've got good processes in place now, it's more about the people? Like, how have you kind of come to that realization?
Are processes ever in place?
They're never.
They're never.
Is that a thing?
It's probably that's probably a pipe dream for most people.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we definitely have processes as an idea. This is what it should look. This is how it should flow. But there's so much emotion involved with what did that. Let's start with the employee. What did they go through that morning? Did they have something that's limiting their intellectual ability to perform how they need to that day? And you go to the customer that's obviously emotionally affected, and there's just so many variances that
it can't be black and white.
And so our thoughts are like, improving what we have in place, and kind of like helping people understand the score a little bit more. I think a lot of things in people's lives is they don't know when they win. They don't know like when to celebrate, and we want to help maybe paint that picture a little bit more by pointing out things that people are doing right, and having clear like a scoreboard for them, like this is what's going well, this awesome job in this today, and moving that from, it's easy to do with a tech, you can look at their efficiency or their hours, but sometimes the management, it's not so easy to tell how well they're doing. And if the manager doesn't feel that, it's hard for them to influence those that they're over.
But I love what you just said. Like, sometimes people don't know what it looks like to win.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of a cool thought. And how fulfilling is it for you to be like, hey, I'm just going to help you know what that feels like. And if we pivot from that conversation a little bit, like one of the things that Kinyon and I have geeked out on a time or two is like, we like to win, right? Like we like to read stuff and learn stuff and go do that. But we take for granted that not everybody knows how to do that, to go learn something and figure it out and be like, I just did that. Like I learned that, I accomplished that. And I think that's cool that that's part of your environment, and part of what you're doing is, I'm going to go show you what this looks like, what this feels like. And maybe that means literally pointing out to you, like, that was a bucket, dude. Like you just scored.
Yeah. 100%. We focus so much on what we don't have, what we didn't get done, or in comparison, that we have a hard time recognizing our own wins. And the shop was just a really easy way to see
A win.
Yeah, a huge win. You know, same here. But I think people you don't have to build a new building to get that sense of accomplishment, right? You could look at where you're currently operating at, and if there's a few changes you can make, paint, color, floor, whatever, you know, then you could move your team in that direction, you know?
Yeah.
So I think just kind of looking at what your environment is currently, how can we improve that? You know.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think because I've thought about this a bunch, because I've had multiple people mention this to me, that it feels like, and maybe it's just because we're in the restoration world, but it feels like in the restoration industry, there's like always a shiny new toy. There's always like this new software coming out, or this new piece of equipment that's going to make your job or life easier, right? And I love that, again, that you've just focused more on like the team. Like how does the team get better? How can we help people figure out how to win? Like that's what's going to help you grow your business, not like what's this new shiny toy coming out. Because again, I talk to people all the time that are just like, oh yeah, we're trying to implement this new thing and we think it's going to help us grow and do this. And it's like, yeah, it might make a small difference, but at the end of the day, like how you grow is by figuring out how to help your people grow.
Yeah. On that, I don't want to be a hypocrite, because we did buy a new shiny toy. Right?
With your big shop? No.
So
You're like, don't be knocking big shiny toys.
Yeah,
They're
right?
cool.
Big shiny toys are cool.
Well, we are changing softwares.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole way that came about is we found a really good opportunity in hiring someone with some really good talents, and we thought, hey, we don't have a position for this person, but let's make one. And then when she came on board, we noticed, hey, this is a awesome tradesman with no tools. She couldn't do her job with the tools we had. And so then we started shopping, you know, what software's out there, what platforms out there that would help her. Instead of being a 70% efficiency, we could push her to 90 plus with the right tools. And we found like, wow, this new software is actually going to be cheaper. It's going to be in real-time information and give us a better understanding of how well we're doing in showing that scoreboard versus what we currently have.
Yep.
And so that, I mean, I don't want to...
No, but
you better just say it, because I'm telling you right now, everybody's going to be texting us and emailing us and DM and being
what the new software
what is the software Kinyon's using? So just go ahead and say whatever your software is.
We have, like yesterday was the first day of onboarding. I haven't even got to look at it yet. We demoed several, and there's several that are very pretty. There's several that are good and probably could fit the needs of what we were looking for. But and I don't want to say the word settled, but we are moving forward with software called PSA, Proven Jobs. They've been doing it since 1994. Yeah. What they can offer is a product that can do it now, and it's not a product that will be able to do it in the first quarter of this year, second quarter of this year. It's like what they offer can do it now.
That's cool.
And we found, like with our current software we use, we don't actually own that data. And we didn't know what that meant. And so I've got 7 years of job history that when we leave, I don't get that anymore. And so we're figuring out how to transfer that. And it's a huge life lesson for me on, we got to know what you have.
Yeah.
You know, because we go back all the time on jobs, or a real estate transaction, and someone moves into it. Hey, we saw you worked here in 2019 and did a foundation repair. Well, now it's leaking. And then we can go through our notes and be like, no, we actually didn't do a foundation repair. We told them it was needed, you know, and so you know, you got to have that, and you want to be able to own that data.
Yeah.
So
love it. I love the new software talk, but again, I think you came at it from a better place. Like you came at it from, how do I help this employee win? Let's maybe update
That's
our stuff.
100% what drove it.
It's not somebody cold called you and said, Kinyon, you need to try this new fancy software. You're like, oh no, we have a need here.
Yeah.
We got to help this person win. How do we help them in? Okay, let's get them some tools.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep, 100%.
Well, the whole conversation really made me think of like one of my favorite books, and I read it all the time at the first of the year. I'm rereading it right now again, is Atomic Habits. And when you were talking about all that, just getting a little bit better, I'm like, that's the whole
Yep, 1% better.
Hayden hears me say it all the time, right? I'm like, just do 1% better, just 1% better, right? It adds up over time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying. Like if they can just see like another win, that's 1% better, and it just compounds.
Yep. Yeah, I had a conversation this week. So we have a consulting firm we use, Violin Management Associates. And,
who are those guys? Who are those people?
Yeah,
nobody knows who they. No.
So, and it was interesting because we have to look at our org chart regularly.
Yep.
You know, and so where do we want to be at the end of this year? What position is that going to open up? How does that fit? And so one of the positions that we're looking at has to do with a little bit more with finances, and the conversation. Well, how well do you think this person will do?
Yeah.
I was like, well, John, we've been a client for 6 years. How well would I have been 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And it was a neat comment because, man, 6 years ago, we didn't even have books.
Totally different.
We had no job tracking. We didn't know what we were doing. You know, I can't believe they took me on as a client because it was so
It's so
Martin
weird
Farms.
because
It was crazy.
Part of me is like, that was 6 years ago, and part of me is like, that was only 6 years ago. Like that's so weird.
Right. Well, because you guys steered me to them. I grew to a position. I don't know what I need to do every day.
I remember telling Jeff Jones, I'm like, hey Jeff, you've got to talk to Kinyon, and I remember telling you, Kinyon, you've got to go get with them. Like you got to have some help here.
And Jeff sat me down. We had an interview. And he probably only took me on because he likes you guys. I was not a safe pickup. I was not a good addition to their resume. But the growth that I've experienced personally is insane. And so when we were talking, can this person be a good fit for this position? I'm like, well, shoot. They've already got a bigger head start than I ever had.
Yeah, don't judge anybody by that.
They know more about this industry than
I did when I was still 2 years older than they currently are.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was rewarding for me to feel like I've seen a lot of growth in myself. I feel super capable as far as like if I had to start over, I feel like I could do it. Mm-hmm. But there's still that, can I take this to where I want it to be? Who knows, you know? But why not?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's such a cool comparison to look at, like where you were 6 years ago. Because I think I think everybody, not anybody, I think everybody should do that. I think regardless of what your job description is or
do a real quick
what
check
industry.
in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. Every so often. Maybe it's the beginning of the year. We're talking about, goals and plans and New Year's resolutions, right? All that stuff beginning of the year. Like maybe take a second to look at where was I a year ago or 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
Can I share something that I sent to you the other day?
Go ahead.
Hayden just had to send my annual review with us, right? Actually, and can I share this?
Well, I don't know what you're going to share, but sure.
It's a good thing.
Can I share
But this is one of the things we
I'm
said
no longer here with Spot On Solutions. No, just kidding.
As I said to him, I was like, dude, isn't it cool? Like you've been here long enough that you can look in the rearview mirror and see what you've accomplished. Yeah. Right. And it's really cool when you get to a place when you're like, I remember when I thought that was hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now it's easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can look in the rearview mirror and say, I did that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's cool.
Well, and it was hard. That's what you forget. It was freaking hard.
But that's what makes it awesome.
That's what makes you good. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to face adversity. You have to be willing to just be like, yeah, well, this sucks right now, but I know that when I come through this trial, I'm going to be polished. I'm going to be better than I am now, and just not cower from it, you know?
And it helps you be a better leader, helps you do the same for others, because you're like, I know exactly what you're struggling with. Let me lean on some of my own experience to help you get through that, right?
And that's the whole thing. For me, that's the whole thing is, how can I use this experience to help someone else?
Yep.
And in the long run, that's that's what makes people happy. There's several studies out there of what truly makes someone happy is how well they've had an effect positively on others around them.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could go spiritual with that, doctrinal, whatever. It's what are we doing to help others
Reach their potential.
Reach their potential that makes us truly feel accomplished. Jim Carrey goes, I wish everyone could become rich and famous and reach all their goals and have all the money in the world, because then they would see that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, it's about what good are we doing here now? You know, and just had a really close friend pass away, and just to think of his life and the good he had. I mean, he's 37, passes away, yet his influence is so big for maybe not on a quantity level of hundreds of people, but for the family that he adopted. Yeah. His own was just a huge reminder for me, you know. And luckily we've moved shops 3 times. I can drive past our first one and just be like, what the F was I thinking? I drive past the second one, I'm like, yuck. And we're in this new one, you know, and it's just And
awesome. You know, 6 years from now, you're going to have those same thoughts.
Yeah. It's
okay.
awesome.
So let's talk about that mindset for just a minute, because we're going to go into a new year, right? Everybody's going to be thinking about resolutions and goals. And there is something to be said for that winning mindset that walks into a new year and says, I got this. Like, I know in 6 years, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a grind, but I'm going after it, right?
Yeah.
How do you keep that mindset? Because I think that's one of the things I just have always loved about you. And I know sometimes when I need a boost, I'm on the phone with Kinyon, I'm like, dude, I got to talk to you for a minute. Yeah. You're my call, right? Yeah. So what is it that you do to keep in that mindset?
I think people need to be vulnerable and willing to have conversations with others, because it's you can feel super isolated in what you're doing, what you're going through. And then if you're vulnerable and talking with others or in a group where that discussion is encouraged, you can see I'm not alone here. And so I'm in a group of people that are there, in accountants, they're forensic accountants, they're marketers, they're retired, you know, they're a software engineer. And any of the struggles that we face, there's similarities across the industry, and there's solutions, and you're not alone in these things. And people have been able to accomplish huge things, and most of the time it's through relationships that you can do that, you know. And I mean, not all of us can develop a spaceship and provide internet to everyone, you know. But most of the time it's just who you surround yourself with affects your attitude and how well are you helping others, and it's just boost yourself, you know? Yeah. So I think being vulnerable to being willing to have discussions with those close to you, or even strangers in a network group, helps you understand you can win, you can do this, you're not alone. Katie calls me, man, this sucks. I'm like, oh, I got one for you. This sucks way worse. We were in a house with 6 feet of sewer water and 2 million hobos.
Yeah.
That is what Katie said to me the last time I called.
And Katie's like, oh, okay, well, my rough spot isn't near as rough.
Katie's like, well, let me send you a picture. And I was like, okay, thank you for the perspective. I appreciate that.
So bad.
Perspective is everything.
Perspective is everything, yeah.
And it's so interesting to me to have a more open mindset that their perspective is their truth. Mm-hmm. If it's not mine and I'm offended by it, that's fine. You know, I can't, their perspective is their truth, and that's what's important, you know, and trying to have a more open perspective on it.
And there is power in meeting people where they're at and understanding, hey, you're not where I am, and that's fine. Right? Yeah. I can set goals with you. I can find the wins where you are, and that's just as fulfilling.
Yes.
Sometimes it's more fulfilling.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't take much to be that person for some other people. You know, I've got cousins that call me because they're starting their own little side gigs, you know, and I have this fictitious success from them because we just built a new shop, whatever. But they'll just shoot a quick Marco. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? And the cool thing is, I have an answer most of the time.
Yeah.
Or I can help them get an answer. I can help them navigate through that part of their business because I lived it. And that's very fulfilling to me, you know.
Well, and I love that motivates you. The relationships piece motivates you because like you could be that to somebody else, but then there are people that could be that to you. So like you can set big goals and have big dreams for 2024 and beyond.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I have people that I know will help me get there. Like I have people, maybe it's an employee, maybe it's a coworker, you know, whatever it is, but like you can be that for somebody else. And then there are people that are going to be that for you, which can help you reach your goals, which is cool. Like it's awesome. I feel like that's a huge confidence boost, which is how, you know, to your original point, Katie, where you're asking, like, how do you have that motivation? Like that motivation comes from people, the people that are around you. Yeah. And it's huge.
Well, it's what I'm starting to see is like, you have goals. I'd love to have a boat. Okay, why do I want the boat? Because I want to be out there with my family. Like we grew up boating. I want to be out there with my family. I want to surf. Well, so then I see it's like, that's not the boat I want.
Yeah.
It's the emotion.
It's the
from
experiences.
Boating, right?
Yeah.
And so like, there's a neat podcast. I don't even know his name's. I think Sean Donahue. He's a parent coach, and he's like, it's never about what it's about.
Thing.
Yeah, it's never about the thing.
So the book about give a mouse a cookie. You know, it's never about what it's about. And we see the same things now. Like a customer's mad because the flooring doesn't match. Okay, well, it's not. That's not really what's about. It's about maybe they felt betrayed by us because we laid something down they didn't pick out. And so that betrayal is what they're feeling, right? And so you correct that. So with my own goals, it could have changed from I don't no longer want to own a private jet. You know, it's more of like...
You want a private jet.
Oh, I would love a private jet. It's because I want to take my friends to cool places, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, what's the emotion I'm chasing? And can that be accomplished now? You know, and in a different form. So
I love that. I love it. Well, that leads right into like our last few questions, Kinyon. You obviously are listening to a cool podcast. Have you been reading any cool books recently? Or do you have any goals to read some cool books 2024?
He's always
I know he is. He was playing dumb like, I haven't read anything yet this year.
No, I truly haven't.
It's because it is...
we're literally 3 days into the
fourth.
Yeah.
So, but what I liked with Christmas this year is a lot of the gifts I received were books. Sweet. They were from friends or they were from associates across the country on books that made a difference in their life or they felt like could make a difference in mine. And so I haven't completely read it yet, but one of them is the E-Myth for contractors. I've read the E-Myth, but I've never read the E-Myth for contractors, right? The
E-Myth was, I think, a book you recommended on your first podcast, I think, with us. Was you either recommended or you recommended something like that. That's a book that we've for sure talked about on here. So that's cool. I didn't know there was one for contractors.
Right, I didn't know that it niched into that kind of thing. But there's a sentimental addition to that book now because a friend that I view as successful gave that to me and felt like it would make a difference in my life.
Yeah.
And I got a few other books. Forging a Dynasty, I think, from Biolan.
Yeah.
That came as a gift,
Chuck's brand new book that
Chuck's
he just
book,
wrote.
Yeah.
Excellent. We had a great podcast with Chuck where we were able to talk about his book with him.
Yeah.
So you got a Spark Notes version. I should go listen, you know.
Yeah.
It's good.
It was so good. Like we had a really
We got his like favorite
podcast.
chapters and stuff. You got to check it out because he's got some good stuff.
It's so interesting, you know.
Yeah.
And
you'll love Chuck's book because when I was reading it, it is like, I told him this on the podcast, like when you go to the VLN Business Planning Retreat and you read that book, you can see and hear things that you
sounds
see
like
and
Chuck.
hear at the Business Planning Retreats.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, that is how they live when you work with them.
Yeah.
So it was cool. You'll like it.
so I have a few books on my list from gifts from people I want to read. But for me, reading is something I honestly enjoy.
Yeah.
And for me, it's an escape for what, like, I enjoy reading self-help books and books on leadership and stuff, but I truly enjoy fiction books too. Yeah. Every night I'm reading a book and it could have a dragon in it or a vampire or sword, whatever, but I read every day and find a lot of enjoyment in it because you're able to be present when you're reading those things, and you get some of those emotions you're chasing, as you read a character succeeding in something, whatever. So I read a lot, podcasts. I obviously huge fan of the Success Elevated podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, huge fan.
But I really enjoy Ed Milet.
He's great.
I feel like he's genuine in his messages. The Sean Donahue, How to Coach Parents, has been really neat for me. Because you can have that discussion on everyone gets a trophy, right? And what the damages are from that. Or you can also look at what's the good from the coming of that. And can you be in the middle of that somehow a little bit? And maybe not a physical trophy, but an emotional trophy. Like, you didn't win, but this is what you accomplished today, right? And so that's been really neat for me to kind of like maybe improve my focus on my own family. Yeah. That's why we do what we do, is for how can we provide for our family. And they don't need a PS5. They don't need to go to Hawaii. They don't need, those things. They just need those emotions and to feel supported in their dreams. And how can I do that in my own home? So.
I love it. What a cool way to kick off
I told
2024.
You, I said, he's like, what are we going to do at the start of January?
the year.
And I was like, you have Kinyon on. That's what you do. So we're going to talk goals and we're going to kick things off right. And I mean that, not joking around. I mean that as a true compliment. I think that you are really, truly one of the most motivational people to be around. And you do that with your team. You do that in our community. I think you do that in the industry. So appreciate you coming on. And
thanks so much. I hope if I were to come back at the end of this year that I'd be maybe following my own words a little bit. And,
we'll hold you to it. We'll have you back on the podcast.
Yeah,
man.
But I'm really excited for this year. I am so grateful for the relationships I have, especially through this firm. You guys have been so instrumental for my success, and it's just had a rippling effect through my own family.
It's so fun. And I say this about the rearview mirror, right? It's fun to look and see how far you go, and it's been awesome to be a part of Restore Rite. I really legitimately loved being at your Christmas party because it was like, man, I was like the journey, right? And I mean it when I say I loved watching you up there talking to your team and wishing them a Merry Christmas and talking about being there in the new building. And I was just like, I felt truly honored to be sitting in the room for it. And I was like, this is cool because I remember when you walked into our super crappy old office, right? Before you were even a client, I barely knew you. And you were like, will you please just help me with my marketing? I'm like, no, we can't help you right now. That's what the conversation was. It's like, but we can make you some business cards. That's how we started. Yep. And I'm like, that was 6 years ago? Yeah. It seems crazy to me. And so, I hope for people that are listening, right? That was only 6 years ago. Yeah. Life can change.
It's so fast.
Life can change in 6 years. We were in this crappy little office just hustling and trying to make it happen. And now we're in this 14,000 square foot building. It's busting at the seams with people and
50 people trying to fit in here. And
and you're in your new building and you got your team that's growing. 6 years, you know? And so it's 1%. It's set your goals. It's treat people right. It's help people win. Yep. And just day after day after day. It feels like a grind sometimes. And you're pushing and it hurts and sometimes it sucks, but you're winning all along the way and it's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. And you could never go back.
Yeah.
No.
To what I was doing before I ventured in this, I can never go back.
Yeah, never.
And it's just, it even financially, it's just paid really where I was at. But emotionally, this has just been so rewarding and such a huge, I don't even know what to say, a boost for my personal kids, to see what can be done. So it's been awesome.
Love it. Well, Kinyon, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
try to beat that for episode 2 of 2024.
Yeah, that was our first episode of the year, and it's gonna be awesome.
When Mel Robbins shows up.
When Mel Robbins. Well, I don't know if they'll be as good as Kinyon, but hey, we'll figure it out. So thanks, Kinyon.
Thank you so much.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.